Well, thank you. I remember writing that part, and it's the only time I've ever like cried while writing something. But I really, really, really connect with the character of J6
Uh-huh.
because like his dialogue is exactly the way that I talk in real life and
Okay.
like the things that go through my head. And so I connected with him a lot, and I felt him in those moments. And also, even though he's a really comic character, whenever I'm writing him, to me, he's in his, from his own point of view, he is dead serious most of the time. He might like compare himself to The Rock and he might talk about like how much he loves to dance and how everyone thinks he's beautiful. But to him, like he's not kidding. Like
Mhm.
this is completely to him, this is just the way that the world is. And so I think that helped in informing those more serious moments. The fact that to him he's always being serious. It's just very ridiculous because
Mhm.
he's a pig kid.
Hello, I'm Derek Cash with the North Little Rock Public Library System and want to welcome you to Meet the Author. Joining us today is Alex Perry to discuss her debut novel, Pig Hearted. It tells the story of Jeremiah, a boy with a fatal heart condition, and J6, a pig with a heart that could save his life. Thank you for joining us today. And Alex, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get to
Uh,
talk to you. I
uh,
loved my time in Arkansas. It was such
uh,
a wonderful creative time, and
uh,
I'm really happy to get to speak with you and to
okay.
just be involved in this at all. So thank
Okay.
you so much.
Well, I mean, I know we're a little bit off point. I'm so sorry you moved to Tennessee, but I'm sure it's their blessing, but our loss because I absolutely adored this book. It was just splendid. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Uh,
I really miss Tennessee. It was beautiful, and the people there are just so vibrant and creative. There's just such a like wellspring of creativity
mhm.
in Tennessee, especially in Russellville. I loved it there. So, and thank you for that. I really
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay. So let's begin by letting you introduce yourself a little bit. When you were growing up, or even now, who are some of your favorite authors?
Whenever I was really young, I remember in third grade, our teacher, Mrs. Brady, had us do and this will make sense if you know what happens in the book, but we had to rewrite Charlotte's Web as a
Hmm.
play, and we acted it out, and I was the goose. And so from an early age, I had a great affinity for Charlotte's Web. And I think that just stuck in my brain somewhere and came back later as I was starting to think of book ideas, and it really did manifest itself in Pig Hearted. But unfortunately, I am afraid of spiders today. So Charlotte's Web didn't do anything for that, but it did help me be ideas for Pig Hearted.
How did you learn to write? I mean, you've kind of alluded to that in when you were younger, but I mean, did you ever take any formal courses, or was it you explain to us?
Well, whenever I was in first grade, they had a little station with these little, those lined pieces of paper they give to
Hmm.
first graders that I would take and I would staple and I'd make little books on there. So I was always trying to make little books, and I won a few young authors contests whenever I lived. I lived in Germany as
Oh,
a little kid, and the Department of Defense had a young authors contest, and so I won some of those just by writing little stories and turning them into my teacher. And I've always been trying and trying and trying to write something, and always found myself feeling weird and unsatisfied if I didn't have a current writing project. So then in college, I took a course in creative writing and majored in English, and really I just kept trying as hard as I could all the time, having something going in the background of some writing project or another. And then finally, in Russellville, Arkansas, where I wrote Pig Hearted and where I lived for many years, they have a really, really great writers group. They have a great critique circle that works out of the Russellville Public Library. And those authors were just so great and encouraging, and they really helped Pig Hearted come to life.
okay. In your book, as I said in the introduction, Jeremiah has got a very serious heart condition, and throughout this book, I you use a lot of medical aspects, medical terms, that sort of thing. How were you able to what research that you did, or how were you able to know what to do to make the book sound accurate? Because this is something that for the layperson, I wouldn't know, but it sounds very realistic in your book.
Well, thank you. That was a bit of a journey. I originally set the book a little bit farther into the future, and then later, sorry, I'm busted. I'm bouncing a baby on my knee so he doesn't
Okay.
yell at me.
Okay.
And then later, it was originally set in the far-flung future, and I later, over the editing process, moved it to now it's set like I'd like to think of it as 5 minutes from now. So the technology is not here yet, but it could happen at any time. And my friend's dad is a cardiologist, so I asked him to read over the book and inspect it for accuracy. I just also did a bunch of research. I talked to people on social media that have the LVAD system, which is the heart pump that Jeremiah has in the book. It's a battery operated heart pump that people waiting for a transplant can use. And I also based all of the technology and all of the medical information on real conditions and on real technology that we have today and that has been proven to exist. And I originally got the idea from someone in 2017 that was, and I heard a story on NPR in Russellville about a scientist that was trying to develop human pig chimeras that would allow a pig to grow a cloned human heart inside of them by editing the DNA, and they're talking about the ethics of it. So that's originally where I got the idea from, and it hadn't happened yet. But a few years ago, they did the first actual xenotransplantation of a human being. A human man got a pig's heart a few years ago, and then just 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, there was another patient that received a pig heart, and that person right now is doing really well. And so originally the science fiction elements that I had kind of invented, they've come true since the book has come out. So that's been really, really interesting. It was a lot of research and then some luck, and it came true.
Well, it doesn't sound like science fiction, in the sense that, this is not real. It sounded real enough that I thought, hey, they can do this sort of thing without having to look it up on the internet to see whether or not the author, Alex Perry, is correct. So you did a very good job of making something that hadn't happened yet sound very realistic. So good praise to you for that aspect.
Thank you. It was something that they've been trying to do, but they weren't sure if it was ethical, because if you put human DNA in a pig and then slaughter the pig and take the pig's heart, how close does that come to harming a human? Because, I mean, you would never do that. You would never steal someone's heart for another human. But if a pig was mostly pig and partly human, is that okay? And that's what fascinated me.
Okay. All right.
And
go ahead.
I also thought that'd be interesting for young readers, because middle schoolers are just the most brilliant, capable thinkers. And they can take, whenever I taught, I loved whenever there was some really juicy controversy, like scientific kind of controversy, because the kids could go into great depth discussing it. And whenever we could connect it to a book, that was even better. So I loved teaching that. And I really wanted to try to write a book that could facilitate those kind of debates and discussions too.
Okay. Along those same lines, I think in your book, you bring up a lot of feelings and problems that young sick people have, basically Jeremiah. And I thought it was fascinating because you're not a young person, you're not 12 years old. And I thought it was a very good way of letting the reader feel how Jeremiah felt. And I'm not an author, obviously, but I would have never thought of doing that. And I just want to congratulate you on doing that and letting us know this is how a 12-year-old feels who's got, a potentially fatal heart disease. What made you think of that, and how did you put it on a 12-year-old writing for a 12-year-old, sort of thing?
Go get some goldfish. Try to get some goldfish down. I'm so sorry. Whenever I was teaching, there was a program at our school where kids that were sick. I taught a girl that had a heart condition.
Mm.
And this girl, she had teachers come to her house from school, and we would work with her and try to get her caught up on the material that she missed for the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I took some of some of what I guessed about her experiences and incorporated that into the book. And whenever I was young, I got diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and that feeling of kind of not being able to do things physically and athletically that I wanted to, and the feeling of sometimes being left out because of what my body could do, that really, sorry, that really informed Jeremiah's character and helped me connect to him, and hopefully will allow him to connect to the readers a little bit better. And so yeah, I taught school for a while, so it was
Okay.
easier to connect to kids' thought processes because it was fresh in my mind from having taught.
Okay. Something I think that the reader will instantly notice is you've got a fascination with the letter J. The Jeremiah, Justine, Justice, J6. Was there a reason for that, or is it just why? I'll just put it that way.
I have no personal thing about Jay, but I know a bunch of families that just decide like, oh, we're going to go with this letter. And then they just, all the kids are this. And I just thought that'd be interesting. And I taught like a few great kids named Jeremiah. So that also helped. That helped inspire me to kind of honor those like awesome kids with a character of their own.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to jump to the end of the story because I just want to compliment you so much on your writing style. At the end of the book, when Jeremiah is experiencing the storm, and he's at home, and you're able to talk about his health and the wires that he's connected to, and he can't get them wet, etc. But you're able to do it without being anal. And I don't know. I want you to comment on it, but I don't know what comments you can make. I just wanted to praise you because that could have become incredibly tedious, like all the medical aspects of it. But you do such a brilliant job of, like I say, the storm and letting the reader know, but like I say, not being anal or anything like that. How did that come about, maybe?
Well, whenever I lived in Houston, there were a bunch of, because you wouldn't think about these huge storms hitting Houston so hard, but whenever I lived there, it would just flood. And like, right after I left, Hurricane Harvey hit, and I saw some of my former students' houses like up to the roof with water, and it made me really afraid for them. And I just put myself in that kind of position, like, what would that be like? And the LVAD system that Jeremiah has, it's called a bridge to transplantation, and it's a pump inside the heart with a wire that comes out of the chest cavity and connects to a battery. And if somebody were to submerge the battery or something, it could possibly short out the pump that keeps their heart going, and it could actually kill them. And I was thinking, if I was just like a kid though, and I had that kind of responsibility, and I was trying to manage that in a flood, in a crisis situation, how that would just be a lot to deal with. And I also think having it through the eyes of a young person who sees things a little bit differently, maybe who's just so in touch with how he's feeling more than like the technical aspects of what's going on, I think that really helps too.
Well, like I say, you just did a brilliant job. I think that's a very difficult thing to do because two different people could have written it, and you could have written it, like I say, so it's just like reading an army report, or an annual report, and just be so boring. But you made it in such a way that you provided all the information, but it flowed so smoothly and you were entertained by it. And so compliments to you for doing what I thought was something very tricky and keeping the reader's attention. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. That's always been one of my top priorities in writing for this age group specifically,
Mhm.
because I quit boring books. Like, I don't I read so many young adult books that whenever I was reading some for my book club, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going on about some stuff. Okay, yeah, I'm done. So my short attention span has really helped me connect with my readers. And I just because I'd hoped they'd quit a boring book, I quit them too. So I try to make it as much of a page turner as I can
Okay,
to help
okay.
my own short attention span
Mhm.
get through.
At the very end of the book, too, I mean, I'm not going to give away the ending. I want the reader to enjoy it as much as I did. But towards the end of the book, J6, and I get a big kick out of this. J6 prays to the fairy hog mother. I laughed my head over it, but he'd done that before. But he prays for Jeremiah's life, and it was such a beautiful way that you do it. It just makes you instantly think of those parents who are watching a child, their own child, and they're just praying to God, God, save my child. And you just did it in such a way. It was just, it's humorous, but it's deadly serious. And that's just a great mixture. And you just do that brilliantly so that you're not being simony. Is that where you take something that's sacred and you turn it into something silly? You didn't do that. And I just thought you did a brilliant job of doing that. And I thought that was just great because instantly I was thinking of the people I've known who've prayed for their children that were close to dying.
Well, thank you. I remember writing that part, and it's the only time I've ever like cried while writing something. But I really, really, really connect with the character of J6
Uh-huh.
because like his dialogue is exactly the way that I talk in real life and
Okay.
like the things that go through my head. And so I connected with him a lot, and I felt him in those moments. And also, even though he's a really comic character, whenever I'm writing him, to me, he's from his own point of view, he is dead serious most of the time. He might like compare himself to The Rock, and he might talk about like how much he loves to dance and how everyone thinks he's beautiful. But to him, like he's not kidding. Like
Mhm.
this is completely to him, this is just the way that the world is. And so I think that helped in informing those more serious moments. The fact that to him he's always being serious. It's just very ridiculous because
Mhm.
he's a pig kid.
Mhm. I'm going to do something I rarely do in an interview. I'm going to turn to some pages in the book because it's just easier this way. Some of the most beautiful aspects of the book. And I'm going to read from page 111 and where you say, Jeremiah made me a word card. He wrote out the alphabet and a bunch of words on poster boards so I could communicate. I'd gotten my promotion. I was Jeremiah's brother. I thought it made me think of the French. I don't know if you speak French, but the French have got the very informal you, which is
Mm.
vous, and then you read in some novels or just in friendships where they go from the vous to the very intimate tu. And I thought of that instantly and just thought, there's the friendship. It was just so beautiful to hear J6 say that about that. You just once again did a beautiful job of just without saying they'd become friends, they'd even become better. They'd become brothers.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something that I was trying to think about how they could communicate because I didn't want him to, you know, gain the ability to speak with his mouth because I wanted to keep the kind of Charlotte's Web aspect of like the animal is intelligent enough to be like a person,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I wanted it to feel more realistic. And that was a big part of his arc, just trying to develop these characters into feeling like brothers from just being like a pet owner type of relationship to really making it feel more intimate. And from the very beginning, I always visualized it as like a story between two brothers
Mhm.
that have to try to save each other's lives. And it's always just it's kind of like a love story like that. It's just a brotherly love story.
It is. I don't know if have you ever seen the movie Spartacus?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll try to be brief. It stars Kirk Douglas and Tony
Mm.
Curtis. And at the very end, and it's a fictionalized story of what Spartacus did, but at the very end, Laurence Olivier has them fight each other. And one of them has to kill the other one. They're Romans, you know, and the one that survives is going to be crucified. And so they've grown to love each other so much. They're both fighting to kill each other because they know how painful crucifixion could be. And that's what made me think of J6 and Jeremiah. They're both fighting for each other in that storm to save each other. They love each other so much. I thought of E.T., but E.T., one of them says, come, the other says, go. But in this book, they're fighting even to give up their own lives to help each other, just like they did in Spartacus. And that's what brought tears to me. How you as an author could do that, and you do it so brilliantly.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, to me, it was always about the brothers. And it's a kind of wild sounding out there, almost science fiction-y situation. But then you can take that back and you can make it just about brothers and make that something that as siblings is relatable to a lot of us. And if not that, then a friend or just any close relationship, and how just they can't imagine the world without each other. And they don't want to have to deal with that. So they're going to do every absurd, outlandish thing that they can to try to prevent that from happening. Even if as an adult, you're reading it and thinking like, oh, this child needs to get under control. But from the kid's point of view, he's just doing everything that he can to save his brother. So that's another thing about the book. I didn't envision this book as having any villains. Everyone in the book is trying their best to do the right thing.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
Could root for any of them.
Yeah. And this just popped in my mind. Every once in a while in the book, J6 would be talking, and then you say, but all they hear is oink. And I would laugh out loud. I just thought that was so hilarious because it's so true. But you've got a comical way of being funny without trying to be funny. You can tell when a comedian is just giving joke after joke, and you're just being funny, but it just flows with the natural dialogue of the story. And I thought of that as you just say, you just brought up how serious, etc. Yes.
What I have always thought of as the funniest is the character with the deluded self-image. So the character who sees themselves in a totally inaccurate way. I just think that that's inherently really funny. And it's also easier to write because, well, whenever Jeremiah is 6, the pig thinks about this, but all they can hear is oink. And he's just trying to pour his heart out. Like, he doesn't think that's funny. He thinks that's frustrating and heartbreaking. And I feel like kids could relate to that too. You're just trying to explain something to your parents or to somebody else you love, but it doesn't come out the way you want it to. And so you're just frustrated, and all they hear is just some nonsense. And you're just really trying to articulate the feelings of your soul, but you might not have gained those skills yet. You might not have become able to do that yet.
Great interpretation. I'm so glad you explained that because it helped me to understand your writing. As I would say, I'm not qualified to analyze literature but you're an author. And so I'm so glad you told the audience to help, because it helps me to have a better understanding of what points you're trying to get across.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, if you'll permit me, on page 45, you say, this is the pig talking. He says, the TV had taught me that kids were the rulers of their domain, and the parents served them like butlers. The smaller they were, the more power they had. And I just thought, you bet. I mean, I don't know if you remember who the Duke of Windsor was. The present king of England's great uncle. Well, anyway, though, back in I think the 1930s, he said, only in America do parents do everything their children tell them to. And I thought this pig has got it right in that, to me, it almost shocks me when parents will jump when a child tells them to. And I thought you hit it right on, head on. who's the boss around here. And I'm so glad you wrote that in there.
And since becoming a parent, I mean, as you have just witnessed, the little baby echoes popping into view, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm your employee and I'm not making minimum wage. Like, there's no, they don't grant me any off time. They don't grant me any holidays. Like whenever I'm sick, they don't care. I'm just their lowly menial employee. And so I in hindsight, I'm like, that's that's real.
All right, I have one more comment, and this is on page 21, where you say, once, this is the pig talking, and he had such great insight. Once I saw a movie about a place called an orphanage. An orphanage is a kid zoo where people watch children sing and dance. Sometimes people will go to the kid zoo and pick out the cutest singer and dancer and take them home. They leave the other kids there until they get cuter. The people who take you home become your parents. And you know what? You've said it in sort of a comical way, but in reality, that is the way, in a way, an orphanage is. They are performing. Whoever's the cutest is the one that gets picked. And so you didn't mean it maybe the way I'm sounding dramatic, but you hit it right on the head.
Oh, thank you. I had for some reason I decided that it'd be funny if a pig was really into musical theater. So
Mhm.
there's tons of like references to musicals. So I just was thinking of Annie and that the pig had just watched Annie and he sees himself as the little orphan Annie, the like little, curly haired, doe-eyed child. He's a big old pig. He's a big old hairy, smelly pig, but that's not how he sees himself. He's just looking for Daddy Warbucks and just trying to do everything he can. And I've tried to, whenever I drop references, it's hard because in your heart you want to put the stuff that you like in there, but you have to find something that the characters would want to talk about and that the audience has some slight chance of understanding,
Mhm.
even though like I'm not sure that all the 12-year-olds out there are super into Annie. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I thought it'd be fun just to have a pig that loves musical theater and envisions himself, at the orphanage with Carol Burnett.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to spoil the ending. If I hope thousands of people read this book, but I do want to tell the audience, don't give up on it. It does look like it's going to have an unhappy ending, but trust me, it has a happy ending. So don't put the book down thinking, oh, it's going to be, just tears, etc. This book has got a great happy ending. And I'm so glad you gave it. I think it would just break my heart because there were times when I cried. It was just so beautiful. I'm just so glad
Actually,
you gave it I thought it was a happy ending.
I had some fun behind the scenes trivia for that.
Okay,
While not giving away the ending, the
sure.
original ending that I wrote and revised with my agent and sent out to the publishers was the opposite ending. It cut short a few chapters earlier, and the publisher wanted me to turn that frown upside down. So
Uh-huh.
I added a couple of additional chapters and changed the ending. And yeah, that's just a fun little behind the curtains of the publishing house thing. But yeah, I ended up changing the ending, and I think a lot of people appreciate that I did.
I think so too. Like I say, we're not going to spoil the ending, but I don't know that I think people would have said, "Oh, it's got such an unhappy ending, you don't want to read it," and people might not have wanted to read. I realize that's not realistic. There are novels we need to read that do have sad endings because that's the way life is. But I'm so glad, at least with your book, you didn't.
Well, I feel like things have been kind of tough in the world lately, and
Hmm.
we
Uh-huh.
need some happy endings.
Yeah,
I
oh,
mean, we're
good.
all just kind of like surviving and scraping through, and we've all been through so much.
Uh-huh.
So, I think everyone's should get a few happy endings in there.
Okay.
If we can't get one in real life all the time, then
Yeah, yeah,
we
okay.
can have we can have one in the book at
Okay.
least.
Do you have any other works that you're working on right now? Can we expect another book soon?
Not soon,
Okay.
because as you could tell by the children running in and out, that's pretty much my life right now. Even
Okay.
whenever the oldest one goes to Mother's Day out, I'm still at home with a whole baby. There are a
Okay.
lot of
All right.
maintenance. I'm their employee, but I am working on a novel right now, a
Mhm.
kind of different one, and I have completed another one that I'm in the process of revising. So
Mhm.
I have things that I'm working through right now
Mhm.
that I don't have any knowledge of whenever they'll be able to find a publisher and come out yet. But I have written one and I'm working on a different one at the moment.
Okay. Well, this is a fabulous story. And so we're going to conclude with this. And Ms. Perry, I want to let you, how can people contact you, or where can they find you in social media?
Well, the easiest way to reach out and contact me is through my website. I have a little contact page on there and I will come to my email. Actually, yesterday I got my first ever young reader reached out to me through the website. Just yesterday, a kid read it and they reached out to say hi, and I thought that was really sweet.
Mhm.
And I was on Twitter, Alex the Adequate, and on Instagram through Alex Perry at Alex Perry Books. And yeah, my website, alexperrybooks.com. And on Facebook, it's also Alex Perry Books. So if you can just remember Alex Perry Books, that's everything.
Okay. Well, this has just been great. Like I said, I just absolutely adore this book, and I cannot recommend it too strong. I wish you the very best in your career, in your sales for this book, for getting more praise from children. So I'll end with that, and I will say to the audience, thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in reading Pig-Hearted, you can check it out from the library or purchase it wherever books are sold. Also, you can find more information at alexperrybooks.com or at our website, nlrlibrary.org. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.